Hey, everybody. Welcome to the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, what we do on this podcast is talk about what B2B sales and marketing leaders, operators, and experts are doing today to really break through and grow their businesses at exponential levels. Let's get it in the interview. At the end, I'll give you an update on my courses, and you can check out my website at b2brevenue.com, and it's Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Hey, Amber, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Brian. I was saying before we started recording, I'm so looking forward to this conversation because it seems like we share so many of the same beliefs. And, you know, that really centers around relationship building and, you know, how you're connecting with people to give value. But this was actually a lesson that was, you know, it wasn't the easy path to learn this lesson because growing up, I was actually not really seen, believe it or not. So I didn't have a lot of friends in high school. That's what it felt like, man. It was brutal. Yeah. You know, I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, and my older sister cast a very big shadow. Wow. And so there was just a lot of watching, observing. And that was actually one of the greatest gifts that I could have asked for, because when you're really looking at how people interact, you can see what excites them, what makes them feel connected, and then what does the opposite. And then fast forward into my late teens, I got a job selling Cutco cutlery, high-end kitchenware. Yep. And that company was unbelievable in terms of the training that they provided. And I had never sold anything a day in my life, but they're very focused on building rapport, building trust, you know, letting the product speak for itself. So really, I just had to show up and be myself and be likable and get to know them. And Sales 101 says it's not about me, it's about you. And that was really natural for me. And so then fast forward, as I created my own company, that methodology has continued to serve me really well.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people have come out of that company, Cutco.
How many great people you mean?
Great people. I'm serious.
I mean, the best.
Well, when it pops up so often, you know, because a lot of people don't put it on their profile because it's like a college summer type thing. And it's just, you know, like I don't put my summer college stuff on LinkedIn. But
well, for me, it really grew into something pretty significant. I mean, I excelled into management quickly. I was managing receptionists. I started teaching other entrepreneurs how to open up their own district. I'm speaking on stages of 350 people. So yes, for most people, it is a summer job that really sets the tone and the foundation for what sales could be like. Yeah. And for me, I was lucky enough to get much, much more out of the opportunity as well.
Cool. Now, what was the impetus to start your own thing?
I sort of got this feeling that I had gotten as far as I wanted to go in Cutco by the time I was about 24, because I didn't want to open up my own office and, you know, so what was I going to do? And I ended up getting this opportunity to do some event planning actually for a conference in town that was teaching business owners how to get money into their business and how to market it online. What's funny is I didn't even know what a blog was back then. I knew nothing. And yet I was running this event. Some of the top internet marketers in the world were speaking. And I thought, well, now that looks like a challenge that will never bore me. Yeah. And so I actually left that event and I taught myself code. I already had a design background, so I built my own website. And as I was out in the world learning about search engine optimization and social media and list building and affiliate programs, I would just blog and educate people about what I was learning. And then before you know it, people started coming to me saying, could you build my website? And I thought, yeah. And one thing led to another where I just started sharing my service of what I had just learned and helping a lot of authors, speakers, and coaches in the space. So my company is about 12 years old now, NG Enterprises, which stands for No Guts, No Glory. And I offer website design. All of these years later, we've built about 700 websites. And I also do bestseller book launch campaigns for authors. And I have some marketing support for my community as well.
And why'd you come up with that name? It's pretty catchy.
No Guts, No Glory. Thank you. I wanted my company name to be something meaningful. And, you know, No Guts, No Glory was a phrase that my mom used to say to me all the time growing up. Wow. And I just thought, what better thing to remember as I venture off to face my fears every day. I mean, business is hard, right? And so I had to remember to just confidently move forward. And it was a great reminder to my clients as well. So it worked out.
And do you still feel a book is a great way to start building either a personal brand or a business?
I think it depends.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a speaker, I think a book should be pretty much mandatory.
Yeah.
And there's definitely going to be a difference between a great book that people refer for years and years and years to come. And then there's the book that you can write in a weekend that you can slough out there as maybe a brochure that's just going to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
I tend to work with authors that write books that are going to stand the test of time because it's just more meaningful work. And I'm not knocking the other version. There's a purpose to that. But I think that it's really just a credibility booster. Like if you have enough content and expertise to write a book, you have a methodology, people are just going to take you a lot more seriously. Even though books are sort of like a dime a dozen these days, it still really matters in our society.
But it's still pretty risky because I took that approach, and everyone who's been on my show that hasn't written a book, that they say, "Do you think I should write a book?" And universally, I say no.
A lot of work.
It's an enormous amount of work, isn't it?
Well, it's an enormous amount of work, especially if you do it right. But I would say that the biggest reason that authorship doesn't work is because you might have a lack of marketing. And you might have a lot of lack of experience or education about how to launch a book or make it continue to sell. And that's really my work. There's a lot of people in the world, Brian, that will do these like quickie little launches and take a couple $1,000 and that's it. For me, the work that I do, whether it's with websites or authors or marketing, I want to help build your company the right way so that you're growing long term and it's all rooted in relationship building. So I kind of circle back to that. This isn't like a quickie little launch for me. It's something much more significant with a huge upside. So I would say the book doesn't die. We can always relaunch it and then we can set it up for better long-term success, but you need to have the right director who actually knows what they're doing.
And there's so few because, as a host, I get hit up by authors all the time. And I'm like, you do not want to be on 30 shows in 5 days. Because and when I see on my podcast feed, okay, I just heard like, who was the actor's been on everyone's show this last week. And I hear him once, I don't want to hear him again. Mm-hmm. So it defeats the purpose, and everyone thinks that everyone's audience is me, but he could spread out those interviews over 3 months to 9 months to a year, and learn through each interview and get feedback on what better things to talk about.
And my feeling is you want to keep it interesting for the host as well. I mean, I do research in advance to know like who's the audience, who's the host, how can I create a personal connection, how can I adjust my message to make sense to this audience. I always try to share something unique on each podcast. So even if people do listen to multiple episodes, they're always getting something different. And it's just a lack of planning usually. Most guests don't do that because they didn't have the thought. And that's exactly my point about the book launch as well. Yeah. These are things that if you have enough time to prepare, you can offer a unique experience each time, and then it can be to your benefit.
Yeah, and even like Donald Trump Jr. came out with a book, and he's on everyone's show, and it's the exact same sound bites. And you're like, whether you like them or not, it's not the point. The point is, it's like, yes, you want to sell books, but you got to shake it up.
Agreed.
You got to be a little bit different. What's the hardest part of your job?
Ooh, the hardest part of my job. That's a really interesting question because my job doesn't feel hard.
No?
It really, that might sound like—
I got to go into that space then.
I know. It might sound ridiculous, but honestly, I have such tremendous joy for what I do that I don't get stuck in what's hard. Yeah. And I love challenge, right? But something that challenges me in my mind is something different than what's really hard. I would say hard is like the things that I don't have control over, and that can be really frustrating. But in general, I mean, something that I've really focused on is developing systems and procedures to make my results more predictable and to then have more freedom to focus on those relationships instead of being stuck in the weeds and like admin or overcoming the hard stuff, right?
But I got to imagine people come to you and they think you're a magician.
They do.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Hard to live up to that, though, isn't it?
I enjoy that, though. I mean, literally, that's why I ended up leaving Cutco, is I felt like, what else is there to
You've done it, yeah.
Right? But it's interesting because in what I do every single day, I play this really top level strategic role where we're coming up with the most creative, innovative strategies for marketing and sales, and even in operations. And then I can go really nitty gritty and develop documents and procedures on how other people's teams can then put that to execution. And then I get to see it work and unfold. And if it doesn't work, then I get to pivot quickly and, come up with something else that's going to work. And I think that part of the reason I don't find it as hard is because I am so experienced. And I don't say that in ego, but I really have been around the block. I mean, I've made dozens of books, #1 bestsellers, 700 websites later. You learn a lot and then your confidence improves. So I have to think more about that one because I just enjoy the challenge of it all.
And I think a lot of companies, their CEO or their CMO are trying to get a book out there to define a category and make it something that everyone starts talking about. Do you get a lot of clients like that? Or are you more on the entrepreneur, solopreneur?
I do a lot in the B2B space, but I do have some clients that go outside of that as well. It's definitely more natural for me in the B2B space because I believe that if you lead with value first and you are educating through podcasts or videos or live streaming or even in one-on-one, conversations, I think that really sets a strong tone for the relationship. And then I know you and I both believe in reciprocity. And so it just kind of starts to build and develop from there. And then people want to get the word out about your book and your brand, and then you want to do something for them. And so a lot of what I do in managing someone's book launch is I'm always on the ground floor looking for ways to make win-wins. So if I am running a launch for Mike Michalowicz, I'll give him a plug. He's the author of Profit First, and we're launching his next book April 28th. And so a lot of what I'm doing for Mike is talking to his connections and figuring out how I can achieve their goals by what we're doing in Mike's launch. Yeah. And so that can be a really fun exchange too. And in the B2B space, I find that people are it's just easier somehow, or it's just more natural rather.
Yeah, I think it is in a lot of ways and harder in others. I think people are more open, more understanding of what you want to accomplish. So do most people come to you, or do you go to people, or?
They come to me. Yeah. That said, I have focused on strategic partnerships and developing relationships with other organizations who trust me and then refer their communities directly to me. I have largely a referral-based company. However, there's no shortage of things that I do to get the word out as well through like podcasts or live streaming, tons of video on YouTube, I'm blogging or on social media. So I'm very active in the world, but because of these relationships with bigger companies and because my clients always have such a good experience, they just want to share the word. And I'm really grateful for that. That's amazing.
And I'm sure you've seen a lot of technology changes and market changes in the last 12.
Gosh. It is unbelievable. It blows my mind, honestly. I was just thinking that this morning.
Because I talk to CMOs all the time and they're talking blogs. And I'm like, well, blogs, they cooked a long time ago.
I know. And they've definitely gone up in trend and down in trend and up in trend and down in trend. I still find tremendous value in blogs because it's the bait that lures people back into your website. So actually, this is an interesting topic that people might find value in, that I do these weekly tip videos for YouTube, and my team repurposes them to make a blog post that then goes out to my email list each week, right? I actually don't expect anybody to read that blog post. That's not why I do the blog post. I do expect some people to watch that video, but ultimately, I think this day and age, people just want to know that you're doing the work, right? That you are willing to show up week after week. You are consistent. It is frequent. You are proving that you know what you're talking about and that you're willing to do the work, because most people are not willing to do the work.
Right.
And so I actually have proven that it's given me a great advantage. It's helped me land strategic partnerships that are worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they saw that I was willing to do the work. So that blog, man, woo, thank you.
Well, that's it, because people think of it as a blog, but what it is your ideas into words that can be turned into a video, that can be turned into sound bites for a podcast, a topic for something else. And people look at it more like a book, and it's like, no, a book is something different, and all these pieces. And I think what's changed a lot, because we went from blogs on your website to pulse posts on LinkedIn and now Medium. So now your content is all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think people have to have a strategy of, yes, you have this idea, but how can you make it into audio and video, and then make fun of it, make it funny, make it irreverent.
100%. And a lot of people get really overwhelmed by all of this, because they think, I don't have the time, I don't have the creativity, I don't know what I'm doing or what's working or what's not working. And I really understand that. I feel that, because I hear it every single day from clients. And it actually was the reason that I birthed this product called Leverage to Scale, that teaches your team how to do all of these things for you so that you don't have to do it. And so there are different solutions out in the world like that. Otherwise, you just need to hire a coach, right? We all have coaches or mentors to some degree, or we're in large masterminds. You do need to continue to learn about what's going on in the world, because it changes quickly and you will be left behind for sure.
That's it. And I see people making these huge investments in a piece of content and not either leveraging, or they're on the wrong channel, or it's too long, or they got this 1.5-minute intro. And it's like, no, you've got to be relevant to that platform, and
That's true. And, you also just have to sometimes just trust yourself, right? So I have also proven that if everybody says, you've got to do it this way, if that doesn't feel right for me, I'm going to do it that way, and then let my audience tell me how they're going to react to that. And if they love it, then I know to keep going down that course. And if they don't pay any attention to it, then maybe I'll try a different strategy. So at this day and age, you really have to be quick to try different things and let your audience tell you one way or another if it's right for them or not, because we're here to serve them in the end. It's not about Amber, right? It's about the people that I'm here to serve.
And how has that changed over the last 12 years as far as that mix? A website, you still need it and everything, but everyone's kind of moved to a social platform, right? Having your videos on your website's great, but you got to have it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, because everybody is going to absorb content differently. And I sort of imagine social media as just where the conversation is happening, right? It's just like you're at a mixer or you're at an event, right? But at the end of the day, if I'm at a conference and I'm meeting somebody in this mixer, they still want to know more about me if it feels like there's something here. So what they're going to do is, instead of taking that opportunity right here in the moment to get to know me better, they're just going to say, can I have your card so I can get to know you better? Because they want to go to my website and take their time and get a feel for it and make their own judgment about it, which is why your website is so crucial. It amazes me that people kind of slough that off like, oh, it's annoying, or I don't have the time, or I don't want to spend the money on it. This is people's first impression of you.
Yeah.
Like the first impression, it matters more than even meeting you in person sometimes this day and age, right? So you have to invest to get it right, something that's going to be a proud representation of who you are and the work that you do. And then the social media is where the conversation happens, where you can share your latest video and blog post, but ultimately as bait to get them back to the website, because it's the hub and heart of everything else that you do. It's where the sales conversation happens. It's everything.
Yeah. And where do you see it going? Have you been a good predictor, or have you missed some trends, or Have you been late to
I
some?
think I've been pretty good,
Have you?
pretty good. I mean, I was doing these weekly videos before video was what video was today. And just even seeing the trends in summits and Facebook advertising. But I just don't see websites ever going away. I think
No.
the structure of them might shift around a bit, but everybody needs a website, and some people need multiple websites. I think that we are going to see some shifts in social media, and it's going to be hard to predict what those even are, but there's a lot of people feeling really restless and frustrated in general. And so something has to give. And that's why I am putting all of my eggs in the basket of relationships, because, you know, we're supposed to be connected more than ever before with the internet, yet people are feeling so disconnected and isolated. We just don't know who to trust. We're getting pitched at constantly, information overload. People are recycling information. And what is the most powerful form of advertising? Word of mouth. We trust what our friends have to say. So you had better pay strong attention to your own reputation, because your reputation is what is going to help your business continue to live on, or whether it's going to die quickly as things move forward. SEO can only get you so far, right?
Yeah.
That those reviews on Amazon can even get you so far. It's really the conversation, what people say about you behind your back, that is where you need to pay attention to moving forward into the future. And that's going to ripple out. It still matters that you're on social media or that you're up with your blogging. But I'm telling you what, that street cred is what counts the most.
And I think your point about relationships, because if, when you're brand new and you're trying to basically start your own piece of real estate, it's not prime Fifth Avenue, right? It is North Dakota, right? So if you know the people on Fifth Avenue who own that store and are willing to talk about you and have you in, that's the relationship that matters, because they built that piece of real estate starting 100 years ago or whatever. And I have this argument with CMOs. I go, you're in the food business. I'm in the real estate business, right? You have the food that I want to give my clients, and it'll take you 5 years to build the real estate that you want. And that's kind of like having the website, the book, but the people who have the channels, the audience already, is who you want the relationships with.
Which is why I always focused on strategic partnerships, because I thought, why not go to other reputable companies that I believe in? I was very intentional. And when I had a good experience with the brand and I liked their community and it felt like a match, oh man, I've put all of my energy into that relationship, giving to them first. This is not something that's like, it just takes one conversation over a weekend. It could take me months of proving myself, of showing up, of giving, of creating other connections for that person, seeing what other people don't see, getting creative in my approach before they start to look at me and think, oh my gosh, look at this girl. She is relentless. Yeah. And it's been a great experience. We really like her. We need to do business with her. And so, yeah, I think that if it were me starting from the ground floor, I'd absolutely have a great website that was set up to attract and convert qualified buyers. I would make sure that my sales process was really rooted in developing personal connection with the people that were learning about my work, and there are ways to do that. But then I would go out and I would really look at maybe 5 or fewer contacts, even if it's not a strategic partnership like a brand. Maybe it's just an influencer that I feel like, oh man, if this person could share me with their world, it would be a game changer. And boy, I would do everything in my power to develop. I'd be at the conferences they're at. I would just give and give and give until they saw me, right? Being seen like I wasn't in high school. And then it would just develop from there. I mean, that's really what I would do. Get scrappy.
And that's it. And because if you listen to their content, they all tell you how they want to be approached and what they appreciate. Yes. And nobody does it. Because I interview at least 100 people a year, and 1%, get it. Most of them, they'll like their episode, won't share it, won't do anything. And then they'll go on somebody right next to me's show and do the same thing. And you're like, okay, well, guess what? You probably want to be back on, right? And you want me to keep
right.
it up.
We're not even thinking about that.
Right.
We're not even thinking ahead. I know. I like you, Brian.
or they'll say, loved your show, want to be on it. I go, great, get them on. They go, can you send me a list of questions? And I'm like, well, you said you loved the show, so you probably listened to it, right? No, they didn't listen to it. They want to take, and they think it's like a public service. And it's not.
Oh my gosh, it is not. Yeah. And it's because I believe there were so many experts and influencers that taught it's about the size of your list, right? Or the size of your community or the amount of podcasts you're on. I really don't believe in that. For me, it's about the quality of the list. I would rather have 5,000 people on my email list that are all like my super ambassador #1 fans that were like my best potential clients ever than a list of 25,000 where I had a terrible open rate. Nobody paid attention. And yet nobody is talking about this online right now. It's not about having the biggest Instagram following possible. It's cultivating the right relationships with the right people, being on the right episodes, right? Like I'm looking at Brian right now and I'm just thinking, this is so meaningful to me to find somebody that believes what I believe, that we have shared approaches and common values. That means so much to me as a business owner. And I just want to keep giving. And I just know, karmically speaking, eventually it'll come back to me in bigger ways than I could ever imagine. But you have to give value first, I think.
Well, that's it, because the law of reciprocation it's ingrained in us. And people have it backwards. It's not that you get first, you give first, then you get. People always say, well, I'll give once I get. No, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. It's craziness. Hey, it's been a great conversation. Where can people go to learn about your work and connect with you?
Thank you so much. So the easiest thing is probably to Google me or go to my primary website, ambervilhauer.com. Kind of a weird last name, Vilhauer. And you'll see the websites, the marketing, the book launch work that I do. But because I do believe in value first, there's educational content everywhere on YouTube. Even I don't force you to opt into my list. You can join my list if you feel moved to, and that's great. But I'm just here to serve and build the right kind of community. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share that message further.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Hey, I want to make sure you're checking out b2brevenue.com. That is where you can get a free copy of an ebook that I did. It's a real ebook. It's not a fluff book. It shows and talks about how companies make buying decisions and how you can influence that from both a marketing and a sales standpoint, how to find all the people that are in the decision path and what they need to see, know, and touch and feel before they make a product selection. If your team needs some coaching, some help, some training, some systems, some processes that do work today, because we know what doesn't work, or you know what doesn't work, I'll show you what does work and how to connect and get into pretty much any account. It includes deal coaching and content, community, and I can customize it for your particular company. Just go to b2brevenue.com, look under training, schedule a call with me. We can talk it over, or just sign up. You can pay per month or all at once, whichever makes most sense for your budget. Also, I put out videos pretty much daily on LinkedIn and on YouTube. On LinkedIn, it's Brian G. Burns, and on YouTube, it's Brian Burns Sales. Just search for that if you like to consume some video content. And if you see me on LinkedIn, please put a comment and a share and a like on some of the videos. I really appreciate it. I've got a company page for each podcast. This one, the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast, where I put both content and humor videos out daily. And tell a friend about the podcast. Really appreciate you listening. Check out the show notes for all the partners and the connections you can make there, the coupon codes for the products to evaluate them, see if they're a right match for you. And we'll see you next time.